A number of questions kind of bubble up to my mind. But the first is, taking a look at that, first response, Paul.
First response to that.
Yeah, exactly. You've just been, first response to all of that. Copywriters feel threatened. Some of them definitely feel frightened, it appears to be. They certainly feel undervalued. So,
it's very sad. It's very understandable. I think we all can relate to the comments. I think the second from last quotation in which the writer made reference to the client's dead hand, I think is the way I would describe it. That thing we all know about, where they will say to you, why did you use that word? This is the word you have to use. You can't use that. The very first client I ever had forbade me to use the word money in the copy. Now, they were a bank. So you can immediately see the problem there. However, I think also that those kind of limitations should be taken as a challenge, and it's incumbent on us to fight back and to view constraint as a creative challenge, not just something to get depressed about.
So again, I mean, Catherine, as somebody who's really made a fantastic career and a business and employed other people all around this thing called copy, what's your response to the kind of the mixture of depression and anger there?
I think it is immensely difficult, I think, as a copywriter, because I've been an advertising copywriter and I've been a journalist, and I think the extent to which we've had to change, the extent to which we've had to embrace new formats and new ways of working has been incredible. I've been running my business for 20 years and the change that I've seen is just immense. But if I'm being harsh, you need to go with it. You need to embrace that change. And I really, Paul and I have been chatting by the bar. Not a good idea. You need to see some of these constraints as a challenge. You need to see the time poverty as a challenge. Yeah. You need to, you know, there are certain types of content digital content where you absolutely have to speed up, and you have to find the creative challenge within the restrictions of the format. And I have to say, I love and hate that at the same time. Often I find it quite freeing that the formats are quite restrictive and the time's quite restrictive.
So Mark, you're one of the guys, you're already getting it and right shoeing because you are a client. However, you are a client at The Economist, and I mean, I don't know how many of you have ever had a look at The Economist style book. It is one of the master pieces on how to write clearly and compellingly. So, again, as a client, what's your feeling when, by and large, copywriters are saying, well, clients wouldn't know a good idea if it bit them on the nose?
I'm a bit worried. I'm sitting here very defensive. I'm the only client in the room. So I'm crossing my arms a bit. Yeah, it's all our fault, isn't it? And talk about the style book. I was agonising today over a bloody full stop and had to go to page 126 of the style book and see if the full stop was right or not. Bloody was. I think, honestly, I think it was a really sad report, and I think you get the clients you deserve. I think the work that goes through is very much part of the process and part of the involvement of the client, and you need to get the clients on board. If you don't like what the clients are doing, then don't work with them, or decide to be whores and just whore yourself out and get work through that you don't like doing. I think you get the client you deserve.
But I think you've said one thing straight away. How many clients have actually got an Economist style guide? And so if all clients were like you and they understood the passion that you put into it, then maybe everybody else in the room would have a kindred spirit, whereas some clients don't appreciate the importance of brevity and correct punctuation and all that kind of stuff. So again, that's maybe something that we should take up. How do we get all clients to be educated?
Well, by the way, if I can just lob in a sponsorship opportunity for The Economist here.
Yes, exactly.
Actually, in partnership with the DMA, a version of The Economist style book for all copywriters who've signed up to this seems to me to be a really good idea.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Action number one.
Yay, marvellous. Applause. Well done, The Economist. Fabulous.
Free book for copywriters.
But it wouldn't work on most digital formats. I have the Economist style guide. I love it. I have a well-thumbed copy. It sits on my desk. It's not appropriate for the majority of the work that we do.
Who wants
It
to
just
work
isn't.
with, who wants to work with the style guide? It's a straitjacket.
No, but what we do is create an awful lot of style guides and governance for our clients, and they're unique to them. And they, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I was helping the Office for National Statistics do one for Twitter, specifically for Twitter and Facebook. Now, your style guide wouldn't have been that helpful then, but awesome as it is.
I want to say one thing.
But it doesn't mean they don't have governance. I really, quite a lot of findings in this survey I do not recognise. They are not, they don't represent the writers that work for us. They don't represent the clients we work with. It seems a very biased view to me. People in digital, I don't think we feel like that. I think we're quite excited.
True? Any
We're not depressed and we're not scared.
digital creative people out there, is this true? Are you a happy, buoyant bunch of people?
There is a correlation between you guys being successful and having people happy working.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that, but it sounded good.
So there's a correlation between you guys being successful and having happy people that work for you. So.
Oh my goodness. Well, you see, shall I tell you what is a lovely luxury? We just employ writers. We're writers, we're content people. So we're a merry band of course we appreciate the craft. We're all in it together. And we're very lucky. I think perhaps, I know you're a copywriter, but in some of the full service agencies, I think the copywriters can be, the content people can be slightly the poor cousins. But in Sticky we reign, because that's all we got. And we love it.
There would never be poor relations in
Not
our
on
agency.
your watch.
No,
Not on your
no,
watch.
absolutely not. I mean, to your point, the agency that I founded with my partners to be a creative agency, and that was first and foremost what we wanted to be, and hopefully have achieved for the majority of the time. So I would therefore hope, and there are one or two of my colleagues, I think, in the audience here tonight, I would hope that they find it a good place to be a creative and they feel supported. And I think that would be, I would hope, therefore, that they would be a bit more positive about their role as copywriters. But I think the agencies should take that very seriously. It was a very serious thing for us that creative intelligence was at the heart of what we did, and the people who embodied that would be the writers, the art directors, the planners, the people who actually went out there and produced the words that people would read, fundamental to the whole enterprise.
But it is definitely true, isn't it? Some of you must have this experience. There are some organisations where the copywriters are the dirt on the shoe, aren't they? I mean, you know, you're not always valued. And I think, certainly from a budget point of view, one of the things that we fight, and one of the things I was hoping that we could raise as a discussion, is how do we, all of us, increase the perceived value of copy content. Yeah, I mean, how do we make sure that we get what the content strategists would call a seat at the table? How do we make sure that people practice content-led design? How do we make sure that when the CMOs are putting their budget together, they actually put a budget there for copywriting at all? How do we make sure that people invest in those skills and that we have a kind of equal value in the value chain of people, where we kind of come behind the techie, the developer, even underneath the coder. You know.
Well, you're in a unique position to be able to answer your own question, actually, because you've got a copy-oriented business. How do you sell copy first? How do you sell the fact that you are specialists in the written word?
You have to build the business case for content all the time. You have to show people through split testing, through what a content-led project looks like versus a project where you came in at the 11th hour and filled in, replaced a load of lorem ipsum on a pretty much built site, you know, into wireframes that you've never seen before, that didn't really factor in the kind of content that you have to supply. You have to get people to understand that if they streamline their sign-off processes for copy, life will be a lot easier. They'll get better quality content out of it. You have to really go quite high up. It's an organisational thing. My big thing at the moment is, how do we create a culture for content on the client side where people get what it means to be an editor? You know, the value of ideas, the value of experience. It's hard, but I think we'll get there, because content is a massive need, and people who can do it well are always going to be valuable. We've just got to kind of assert ourselves, I think. What does everyone else think, though? Yeah.
Sorry, can't talk.
Sorry, about my mind.
Sorry.
I'm really louder. The interesting thing I found, and you spoke about obviously digital, is one person wrote about wanting to be Don Draper. Everyone else wrote about their heroes being from the graveyard downwards. Do we just look backwards too much? Are we celebrating an age that's gone, that's dead, that's not interesting? I mean, I get bored of it. I see on Twitter we praise Don Draper and Mad Men. It doesn't even exist. You know, I've never seen fashionistas talking about Carrie Bradshaw as much as we in advertising talk about Don Draper, you know. So I personally get bored of it. I really like it. I think there's two things that come out. One thing is, and I've noticed in my agency that there are copywriters and art directors and designers who love it, who don't care about the time, and they go home when the job's finished because they just love it. And there's others that get to 5:30, 5:45, and their job isn't a vocation, it's a job. But then they want to be trusted and respected afterwards, and you think, well, you can't have it both ways. But the biggest problem is, sorry, it's not about me, I apologise. I've become the man I hate these things. My problem is, it's all about me, so you're going to another an hour, just settle down. My problem is that we all just keep looking backwards and no one's looking forwards, and I'm bored. I get bored. I actually, there's no one stepping up and going, you know what, fuck off, Don Draper.
Yeah, but
I don't give a shit.
Andy Maslin was on that list, and he was overlooked. He had quite a big share. Andy Maslin wrote a book called Right to Sell. He's one of the chief exponents of writing for the web. You know, he was on there. He had quite a big share.
Half the people on that list weren't dead. Tim Riley's not dead. I hope he's not, because I'm having lunch with him next week. Andy Maslin's not dead. Tim Delaney, I wish was dead, but that's not. I mean, there are greats in every sport or every performance art, and some of them aren't with us and some of them aren't performing, but half those people are. And I think, going back to the other question about how do we get clients to appreciate us, it's to stop wanting them to think like us, and for us to start thinking like them. So they're not sitting there thinking, what are the 8 most beautiful words that could appear on the page in front of me today? They're sitting there thinking, if I don't improve sales by 2%, I'm going to have to fire 14% of my sales force. If I don't get this stuff in from China by Tuesday, I've got nothing to put in the store. And then a copywriter walks in and goes, well, I think I might want to put the word moody in there. You're just not thinking like the client. If you start thinking about the client and you start sharing his values, he will start listening to you and he will start appreciating why you are putting the words in that you are into copy.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I mean, my first thought when you put that slide up and said, oh, people don't like compliance. They say, oh, compliance won't sign this off. I say, well, you know what, that's a bad brief, because the compliance should have been on the brief.
The C word.
Okay, from the audience.
Follow on that point that like copywriters and clients aren't thinking the same way. Well, I think it's about both sides moving a little bit closer together, because at the end of the day, if clients want to improve sales, which they do, they need to engage their consumers. And if you're a copywriter, you should also be looking to engage consumers. So it's not that different.
I think it should be a collaborative process. I hate it when I get emailed a bloody script or something and no one's there to present it to me, or I want to see the passion, I want to see the vibrancy. Just, here you go. Oh, crikey, you know, I just don't want to get involved in that. But it should be a bit of collaboration, coming closer together, absolutely.
Actually, that is a really good point, because people often ask me, because we do a lot of financial services content, so compliance is the big C, it's true. And people often ask me, how do you get around them? And actually, one of the ways that you can best not get around them, that sort of sounds like you're trying to trick them or get them to sign off stuff they don't think is compliant. But one of the ways we found most successful was actually to go and be with them in a room, to meet with them, to explain why we front load sentences or why we're using a search term. Because actually, once you explain what you're doing and why you're doing it and the value of it and how it will affect the performance of the content, people are totally reasonable. I just think your point is brilliant. We've got to come closer together. And the problem with a lot of creatives is very true of journalists as well. I mean, I'm at the Press Association, there's journalists coming out of my ears, is that there are still a type of writer who thinks that money and clients and the business side of it is dirty, and they want to be creatives in an airy-fairy space.
Especially at The Economist.
Yeah, probably. And that, I think that, oh, it's all right, I'm stopping. Don't kill yourself.
I mean, I have no idea if this is an opportunity for initiatives and things, but it does occur to me that actually you, as the constituents of all of this, are the people most likely to understand what great examples of copy are. So wouldn't it be great to have the DMA Copybook? You know, you tell us what great examples of copy are across the whole spectrum of communication, and then let's share it. You know, and then, by the way, if we can also tell the marketing stories behind it, what the successes are, then so much the better. But it is true that quite often, you know, people's idea of what constitutes copy is going to be stuck in whatever their particular niche is. So the broader the spectrum, I think, the more interesting it would be. Any other thoughts?
I thought it was really interesting that what a lot of copywriters liked doing was writing long body copy. And I think that's quite interesting, because I think I'm client side now, I'm ex-agency, that I think a real skill is to be able to write really tight, short copy for things like tweets. I think it's an absolute joy to see something when it's done really, really well. Yeah. And I would have thought that copywriters, because of who they are, kind of enjoy that rigour. Why do you think that chart came out where it did, unless I've read it wrong?
No, you're right. The long copy was the most. I think 39% you wanted to write long copy. Well, I need to ask you the question. So, why do I think it is? I think you've maybe just answered that. Is it harder to write with economy of language, as I was taught? You know, I was a journalist initially, and so that was one of my key watchwords. And as I said, my first creative director said he had a month to write a poster. If you've not got a month anymore, which you certainly have not got to write a month in my agency to write a poster. So I think it is tougher to write short copy. Long copy, yeah, definitely is. I would enjoy it. I said I'm a frustrated writer. Paul, did you enjoy writing long copy more than?
Not more than. I think the discipline of writing very short and very punchy copy is a great challenge. I think it's like writing poetry. That's the nearest I can think of, and that's the highest form of writing to me. So that's a wonderful thing. Actually, when I read that comment in the survey about long copy, I thought a lot of writers probably like it because they think they'll get away with more of what they want, because the client will not have the energy to fuck up the whole thing. More of it will survive. But that was possibly a cynical view.
Just wait till everyone's got a right for wearables. What are you going to do when you've got to fit it on a watch face?
Yes.
I wonder if some of the reason behind that is that when you get a long copy brief, it actually gives you some time, and it's one of the few things where the time is sacrosanct, and you're given that time to sit back and have a real think about what's going on the page. Like, I totally appreciate like a short tweet and the joy of that craft, but I think they're seen as a bit more throwaway, so people want you to just spit them out. Whereas if you're going to write some real lovely crafted long piece of copy like that Gossage ad we saw, you know, you kind of get that time to really sit and think about it, and people give you that space.
Do you like writing for outdoor?
I'm a digital agency. I haven't done too much of it, but
I see banner and outdoor as being the same.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I do. I like banners as well, to be honest. It's just about having something interesting to say, I think, and again, having that time to think about what is the most interesting, appropriate way to say it.
But there's a tremendous skill in praising and being parsimonious with words and boiling it down and distilling it into the message into 3 words.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's more like the people around you that aren't the writers, the kind of people that are probably getting a bit of knock in that survey. That maybe respect that, oh, he's got to write a page, I'll leave him alone to get on with it, and then you're given that kind of piece with your words where you can really craft it.
Did anyone see there's a brilliant poster on the tube for, I don't know how you pronounce this, the sound people, Sonos, and it just says, Google Sonos reviews, full stop. Ta-da! That's brilliant.
I mean, I think one of the things, let me just lob this, one of the things about copywriters is the successful copywriters were paid to think. They weren't actually paid to have a rhyming dictionary and to be able to use alliteration or anything like that. But it is to think and to be able to come up with an argument, sometimes expressed in possibly even no words at all, but there's still an argument there, whatever it might be, and you communicate that. Now, the thing about thinking is it's the hardest thing a human being ever does. And in fact, most of us will do anything and everything we can to avoid it. And so that's one of the reasons why you see the same ideas replicating themselves time after time. But maybe it's also the reason why copywriters as a breed are a fucking bad-tempered lot. You know, honestly, listen to the rage of all the comments, you know, both online and offline. You know, my instinctive reaction to all of this is, fucking hell, clients, fucking fuck. Why? Because every time I get a brief, I'm having to go, oh, fuck, I've got to think of something. And I mean, I don't know whether this is true. Do you know what I mean? I mean, so we're surrounded by people who don't think. And so it's this kind of expression of angst the whole time as a result of, because what we're trying to do every time is come up with something that really works, that resonates, that is new, that communicates. And it's bloody hard. It is really hard. So this is an apology for all rude copywriters everywhere, especially me. But is there something in that? And then, I mean, instead of giving people style guides and training classes, perhaps it should just be cancelling.
Yes, exactly.
Do you know what I think copywriters need training in? I think we all need training in data. Because what I see happening with all the marketing automation software, and I see it every day in my market, more and more budget being spent on this stuff that churns out insights about customers and says, you know, the people that you're aiming at actually want to read more of this kind of stuff and less of this kind of stuff, and they like pictures of cats but they don't like pictures of dogs. And that is dictating the briefs, it's dictating the planning brief. And what it is going to mean, which I think is a good thing, is that you'll have a score related to your work. So it won't be about whether you think it's right or the client thinks it's right, it will be about how it performed. And that's good, isn't it?
The numbers, you can't just, but it's how you read the numbers.
Oh, yeah, I do agree with that.
And you do go back to the old world. The Maureen campaign for BT pre-tested badly. And you have to look at how you look at the numbers and how you interpret them. Okay, what's the hairstyle going to be next week? Well, that may or may not be the case because something else changed, because somebody else becomes the first lady or something like that. You know, it's all, you can't just say that it's about numbers.
No, and I do agree that data can kind of be our friend and our enemy. It can put us under terrible pressure, but it can also be very helpful for a copywriter. But what I do think, I'm thinking more of short form copywriting, copy optimization. If I tell you I think my landing page is better, we can argue and argue and argue about it, but ultimately if you split test it, you will know which version converts more. That's very true to the old, to the Direct Marketing Association as it once was. This is like DM, where we look for response rates.
As long as we have, and I'm a database planner, so I'm kind of giving you a caveat. As long as we have the rich opportunities to make happy mistakes.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, there's no progress if we optimize things to within a life of itself. There'll be no, you know, creative spark. So I love the fact that you can be fantastically accountable. I don't know whether we've had this conversation about the fact that Netflix knew exactly what happened the moment Kevin Spacey strangled the dog in those first 9 seconds of the episode of The House of Cards, and they saw people fast forward and all that kind of stuff. Sorry?
I haven't seen it.
Well, you have now, love, it's right. And there's a lot worse.
Ready to watch.
There's a lot worse when that Japanese guy's got the plastic bag on his head. What the fuck was all that about? Anyway, so...
I've read all 7 Game of Thrones, so if you want to go spoilers, I'm here.
But I guess the question I'd like to ask you guys, what do you feel, how do you feel the fact that your work is constantly measured now?
I run a writing agency called Verb Identity.
Yeah.
A marketing client asked to sit next to him in a board meeting. And the CEO went around the room, he said, commercial, how is it? And head of commercial said, up 22%. Ops, how are you doing? Up 14%. Turned to the chief marketing officer and said, marketing, how is it? And he went, I think it should be blue. It just doesn't stack up anymore that in a data-driven commercial world that you can sit there and say it's a hunch. Now, you can say it's a hunch and I'm going to support it in this way, and in the end, you'll never know absolutely for sure. But you can't expect a client to buy into what you're suggesting entirely on the basis of the copywriter's shrug, as we call it. I'm the copywriter, believe me. Yeah. It just doesn't work anymore.
No, it's important for things to be measurable. I think one of the greatest pleasures is to put out a piece of work and have people actually read it, and you know that they have, because they've responded to it, or even better, but a very rare experience, you've seen them read it. And that, to me, seeing that happen is wonderful. So they're reacting to something that you did. Brilliant. Yes, make it measurable. Love it.
But I've started seeing copywriter CVs now when they tell you how many views they've got on YouTube, you know, for whatever video they've just produced, which is kind of, so there's measurable. You know, so 170 million at Crispin, Porter and Boguski for Turkish Airlines.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's the lady at the back's point there becomes incredibly important, because that's fine as long as they're not all 8-year-olds that can't buy your product. Yeah, you know, that is the point. How you measure and what you measure is key.
Sorry, just to add that, I think one of the things about data is that also, on the one hand, you have to decide whether it limits you or whether it whether it's just going to make you do the same thing over and over again because you find that it works, or if you're going to let it inspire you and maybe dare to try something new and innovate. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Personally, I think as a copywriter, I think data is bloody brilliant, provided the data is useful. So, for example, we were recently asked to help Durex in Italy, and one of my creative guys went instantly to Google Analytics to see if Italians search for sex. And it turns out that they do, you know, but only in August. It really is. Now, the moment you know that, then actually it means Italians are show ponies for 11 months of the year. They just talk a good game. But in August, if you're married to an Italian, you better be afraid, very afraid. But as a creative person, you can take that data and you can start thinking, well, how do we turn February into August for Italian? Do you see what I mean? So, I mean, when data really is revealing and insightful, then it can just open these fabulous doors.
It's a huge opportunity for you. I signed off 76 ads last week, and they're all out there being tested and optimized, and we do that sort of scale every week. And so someone's got to write that stuff. It's you.
Us.
So let me just ask a question to the floor. This is a tough one. What did you want to get from this evening? What would you really like to go away with from this evening? You know, apart from a sense of kind of shared pain, as it were.
No, shared hope. There's loads of hope. You're going to be mega rich if you are really...
He's asking them. They need to answer.
I'm sorry.
What kind of initiatives do you think, what would you like to see starting from tonight? So rather than just talking about it, what can we start tonight? What begins here?
I just thought there's one word heard tonight, or not heard tonight, which is really worrying me, that is fun. No one has said the word fun. This is fucking fun, this job. I love it. We all love it. There are challenges, it's content, it's 3 words, I don't care. I get annoyed when the client says, oh, can you mention these 6 words in this 3-word headline for me? Which is incredibly annoying, but it's quite fun to work it out. And I think we've all got to remember that. We can moan all we like, we can moan about briefs, we can moan about clients, but let's just fucking get on with it.
I agree, absolutely.
You know, we can moan. I'm relatively young. I've worked in digital, I've worked in above the line, and now I lecture in it. But that's what I really want my students to have, is fun. And when they have fun, they write good copy. So that's what I want to say on that subject.
I agree with that. Let's go back to that collaboration point a minute. I'm spending all day looking at these bloody spreadsheets and these dots moving around. I didn't spend 28 years in agencies for that. I want the fun, and the only fun I get is meeting the copywriter once a week when we're going through the ads. So it works both ways.
Likewise, like my friend here, I'm slightly surprised, especially in a room full of copywriters, that the one word I haven't heard this evening is ideas. We've talked about defining what copywriting is in terms of different media, long form, short form, etc., and what makes a copywriter. And we've not once, I think, heard the word ideas. And perhaps actually that's the root of the problem, what this evening's about to a certain extent. I took a slight bit of issue, if you don't mind me saying so, with the graph with the pencils. And this is an example of what I mean. And that graph with the pencils showed us that there was a high degree of satisfaction amongst copywriters if you were writing press or if you were writing TV. And it kind of trailed down to kind of 0 if you're writing content or emails, etc. I suspect if you took that survey into Abbott Mead Vickers and you asked everyone who worked on The Economist, you know, do you enjoy writing content on The Economist? Yes, they do, because it's a great idea and a great campaign. And if you went to some, no disrespect, if you went to someone, I don't know, like Direct Line, for example, or whatever, and an advertising campaign and an idea that doesn't have cachet, and you ask them, do you enjoy writing TV and press on Direct Line? They would say no. Would you rather write content on The Economist? They would probably say yes. And I think if there's a general sort of malaise in the room about the standard of copywriting, sort of across the industry, so to speak, if we don't value copywriting, it's because people, the receivers of what we do, are not valuing copywriting. And we're supposed to be the experts in changing that. So if we're unhappy about it, it's up to us to do something about it. And where all good copywriting starts, it starts with a good idea, so perhaps we should apply that discipline to ourselves.
Bravo, well spoken. I mean, I think this is the beginning of a community of copywriters. I think it would be fantastic as an initiative from tonight if the DMA was able to create a forum in which people shared what they thought was great examples of copy across all formats. You know, so sharing knowledge, sharing experience, you know, sharing, again, some of the fun, sharing some of the ideas, sharing some of the wisdom, you know, so educating ourselves, letting people know what it's like to work in kind of specific areas. And not only that, I also think, you know, making available, I mean, I hear what you say, Catherine, but for me, the style book is a fantastic offering, you know, because what it is, it's learning the basic skills. You know, some of the, Mike Smith, who in October, you know, was a copywriter at CDB in yesteryear, writes beautiful copy. Today he writes fantastically well for digital. Why? Because he's learned a vocabulary. You know, if you learn the basic building blocks, then you can start using them in new, exciting ways. So I'd love to see the style guide being adopted and shared and used by any of you who want to use it, by the way. And sharing the whole literature of copy as well. There are plenty of blogs and people out there who are sharing their experience. So if there's some kind of central forum, over to you guys to be able to manage that. I mean, any other thoughts? Yeah.
I'd like to get two things out of this evening. The first, selfishly, is a recommendation for a good senior account director, because we're growing so fast with good clients. We need help. The second thing I'd like to do is kind of get writers to be more optimistic. I think the reason why they're negative in surveys is, like all performers, they are highly anxious about their performance and they're never happy. I'm only happy about my copywriting about 10 years later when I look back at it. So I think that all copywriters should be optimistic, and I'd love them to walk out the room feeling optimistic, because when I started my advertising writing career, I was writing on British Airways, and they wanted me to write 8 words a year. And now clients are turning around to me and saying, Chris, we need 8,000 words before breakfast tomorrow. If you can't actually write them, please tell us how we should write them. So I think for good copywriters that are actually interested in helping clients and helping their own work develop, they should be immensely optimistic.
Well, I mean, going back to the point you made over there about fun, you know, the great Bill Thompson used to have a picture of his dad on the wall opposite his desk. His dad was a miner. And he had a picture of his dad down the mine, just as a little reminder of how lucky he was to be sitting in Berkeley Square, you know, earning a 6-figure salary. Any other thoughts from the lady there? Microphone? Oh, yes, sorry. What? Yeah, no, okay.
I mean, one of the things I'd like to unpick, obviously, as a planner, and failed creative from the past, Paul's laughing, is why the brief and the proposition aren't quite so important. However, just reinforcing the idea of fun, I actually call it more joy. Yesterday, I sat in 2 creative sessions with our copywriter and creative director. One was the Institute Directors, which you would think might be a little bit dull. One was Liberties, where you've got a lot of space to play with. Both from briefs I'd written that were derived from insight from data. And the copy that was coming out made me so happy, right? It was just joy. It was singing. And I wrote to the creative director in the evening saying, you know, with trials and tribulations of the day, this is the best thing. And actually, when Paul, I saw you this evening, you know what I thought of? Blood donation pitch. Many, many years ago, you read out some copy, and I almost cried.
Oh, thank you.
What was it?
I can't remember now. But you know what? That echoes a bit. It was not. It's a bit longer than that. But it echoes a point that you made about the presentation of work. You mentioned that earlier, and I think that's such an important thing. We would always in the pitch read the copy. I would always do that. I'd write it and then read it to the client, as I did to you that day. I think it's really important that every piece of copy should be presented like that. And I know perfectly well that the logistics of agency life mean half the time it's being emailed over. And that, to me, is a tragedy because it does not give it the value that it deserves.
I really agree with that. Do you know what? Somebody told me at an event a couple of weeks ago that 40% of digital copy, they'd done a survey, revealed that 40% of digital copy never got published at all. And I don't know if that's your experience, but it's very much our experience that a lot of stuff that we've really kind of sweat blood over, it ends up never going live at all. And this tends to be political reasons, technical reasons, or just like with digital, the moment has passed. So there is actually something in that. Like getting stuff live is a thing. And that never used to be a thing. That is a thing for copywriters now.
Yeah.
What I'd like to see, I know tonight's about kind of putting a magnifying glass on copywriters, but I'd like to see us looking a bit less at ourselves and working with a wider team a bit more. The moments of joy and fun that I have most are when I'm working with a planner, with UX, with a designer, with a developer, and I think that we need to kind of not just look to ourselves to come up with the solutions, we should bring in all of those different disciplines and work together, and that's the real key to success.
Right, well, I think we're going to have to wrap it there. This is, I hope, just the beginnings of a debate. And I really hope that the DMA will reach out to all of you, and somehow keep this conversation going. What kind of forum for we create, I'm not entirely sure yet. But any ideas you have that can support this initiative, that can help you feel as if you're part of a tribe, that can help us have fun as a group of people, because we celebrate great ideas, and we also appreciate the variety of different skills and opinions, that we have within this room and within this profession, then send them our way.